So glad you could stop by today, take a few minutes to learn how to be safe around electricity, because we do want you to be safe. That's why we have the Safe Electricity Program. You can read all about it, see more videos, find lots of great information at safeelectricity.org. I hope when you get home you take a chance to check it out. One of our major campaigns is called the TLC campaign. If you look at this sign over here, it's the Teach, Learn, Care program. And for the past 4 years, we've had a different focus every year to tell you the story of someone who's been personally affected, how electricity has changed their life. Last year, we did the Jim Flock story. He was a farmer from the Warrensburg area. On the video on our website, you'll hear from his wife talk about the story, because unfortunately, Jim didn't make it. He was driving a sprayer through his field. It was parking it near the end of the field, and there were some power lines up there. He didn't realize that the sprayer had come in contact with them. When those arms had come up, they'd folded up, come in contact with it, and while he was in the vehicle, he was okay. He was part of what was energized by those power lines. But when he went to leave the sprayer, when he got off that power equipment, he stepped down, took one step down, and he was the connection to ground. Electricity is always looking for a path to ground. And electricity moves so fast. It's like 168 miles per second or something. It's crazy fast. We can't do anything to react to it fast enough. Now, he did survive at that point, but he had quite a struggle for quite a while and didn't end up making it because of that. So always look up for power lines. A few years ago, we had a couple of teenagers who found themselves in a car accident with power lines. And it was very fortunate that just not that long beforehand, they had attended Kyle Finley's Live Line demo show, which you see behind us because Kyle was out here earlier during the fair doing that show. He had to leave. There was a family emergency, but we're so glad to be sharing that information with you, having Shawn out here to share his story with you. It's something you don't normally get during the fair, so you're in for a real treat. But these two teenagers were in this auto accident, hit the pole. The wires from that pole had come down and landed on the vehicle. From inside the vehicle, they didn't know that. But they remembered from Kyle's presentation that if you find yourself in an auto accident with a power pole, power line, you stay in the vehicle. Don't leave. Because just like in Jim Flock's story, if you try to leave, if that car is energized, your body's going to become the path to ground. And that is a very dangerous and often deadly situation. So what you do is you call the power company. And as soon as they arrive, they will help. In the rare, very rare circumstance that the car is actually on fire, that is when obviously you need to get out. But it rarely happens. What you do then is to prevent from being the path of ground, to connect what is energized to what is not, where it's different. What you do is, you might think you're looking a little goofy, but trust me, it'll save your life. You're going to hop. You hop out of the vehicle with your feet together, and then you continue to do the bunny hop. I'm sure you've seen it at many dances, many weddings. What you do is you just bunny hop away, keeping your feet together. How far are you supposed to go? We don't really know. It depends on the accident, what might be energized, what might be along the way. Is it a fence? Is it another pole? We don't know. Keep hopping till you can get help. I'm going to skip down past Shawn's story for a moment and touch on Caitlin McKenzie. Caitlin McKenzie was 12 years old, was enjoying a day of swimming in a neighbor's house with friends, and went to turn a light on the trampoline. Now that light faulted. Why? We're not certain, but it did. Caitlin didn't make it. And it was because she was still damp from the swimming pool. Water and electricity do not mix. And if you go and see her video, you will hear from her parents and her family tell her story. Now, there are some things we can do from this story and learn to do at home. Ground fault circuit interrupter, a GFCI outlet. It kicks out when there's a fault. It's going to prevent someone from feeling the effects of that fault. It's got a reset button on it, GFCI. Outdoors, you can also get them. You want to make sure if you're using any equipment. On the weekends, we try to get a lot done. We are weekend warriors. And so we use a lot of electrical equipment to help us do it. GFCI outdoor outlet. And while I'm on outlets, a really simple thing you can do around the house, this is a tamper-resistant outlet. And you can get outlets with the covers on them, but it's really easy for little kids, the little fingers, to stick it in here. You can't with this one. You have to have both prongs to be able to go in. You couldn't stick a key in here even if you tried. And they're really cheap. I think around $1 for this. Great security measure for your home. Well worth it. Now we come to Shawn Miller's story. Shawn Miller was helping out a family member, doing some work in the yard, and had an encounter with electricity. And we've already talked about how fast it moves, how we don't have time to react to it. And it's really a miracle that he's here today to be able to talk to us about it. He suffered 27 exit wounds, had 31 surgeries to be able to make it where he is today. But I'm not going to tell his whole story. Thank you, Shawn, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. November 29, 2003, my mother and I always had a ritual. After Thanksgiving, that weekend, I would go over and help her decorate for Christmas. And we'd always decorate her outside yard, and every year she would find a new area that we would add decorations to. That year, she wanted some trees that line the front of her property to be decorated, and I had played in those trees my whole life. Grew up in this house, spent 20 plus years. So that morning I got up, got dressed. It was 30 degrees out, little frost on the ground. Had a game plan. Thought it through, knew what I was going to do. My game plan was to go out to those trees, take a roll of wire of the Christmas lights, hold half of them in my left hand and toss the others up, and then walk them around. What I didn't think about that morning is what almost killed me, the power lines that ran above those trees that I had seen for 20 plus years. I didn't even think about it that morning. They never entered my mind that I might come in contact with 7,200 volts of electricity, which is what I got into. After the accident, they think I was alone for 3 to 5 minutes before my mom found me. And what she came out to find was me laying on the ground, smoke rolling out of the back of my head, my chest on fire, and smoke rolling out of my back from my exit wounds. The electricity left my body in 27 places from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. When she found me, I was unconscious, unresponsive, no pulse, no heartbeat. I did come to on my own there and actually thought she was hurt because she was sobbing, and tried to get up and see what was wrong with her. And her and my father held me down and explained that I was really hurt, to just lay still, that an ambulance was on the way. I drifted in and out several times between that point and the point they took me to the community hospital, where I have a very large family, extended, and I came to in the hospital and woke up to all 7 of my brothers, their wives, their kids, my wife's family, their kids, about 25, 30 people. And we later found out that the only time they ever allow that is when they don't expect the person to live and they want to give them a chance to say goodbye. At that point, they lifelined me to Wishart Burn Unit in Indianapolis and put me in an induced coma for 6 days so that they could deal with the severity of my wounds. I found out later from my wife that they gave me 0 chance to live, and by the grim chance that I did survive, I would be in the burn unit for 2 to 2.5 years with a recovery time of 5 to 6 years on top of that. I came out of the coma 6 days after my accident. A lot of people don't know the difference between an electrical burn and like a campfire burn. If you get burned at a campfire or on a stove or something, you burn from the outside in. Electricity burns you from the inside out. one of the major exit wounds I had was my chest, right above my heart. And that was the one they addressed first because of my organs and all that. So they treated it, closed it up, and then started dealing with removing my arm and my finger and all my other exit wounds. I defied the odds. I got out in 30 days on my daughter's 9th birthday. 30 days to a T, I was out of the hospital. I went home, was having a lot of chest problems, and was scheduled to go in for a revision on my arm to have some work done on it, and they were going to look at my chest. They had thought that they had left some staples inside from all the operations they had done there, and they thought my body was just rejecting the staples. Well, when I woke up from that operation thinking I was going to go home, I woke up to my wife crying, telling me that I was going to be in the hospital for 2 more weeks, that my sternum had died from the electrocution and had started to liquefy in my body. And that's why I was having the severe chest pains, because when a bone dies in a living body, it liquefies. And my body was rejecting that. So they had to go in and remove my sternum, my breastbone, and do what they call a muscle flap. They took one of my abdomen muscles and put it up in my chest so that I wouldn't have a 4-inch deep hole there where my sternum was. Through all this, we came to find out, Kyla is actually the one that explained this to me, that does the live line demos. Electricity, high voltage electricity, can actually continue burning a person for 48 hours after the contact's made. That's why they didn't catch my sternum, because it looked fine from the outside and they were tending to it, and then I had so many exit wounds that they had to close it up and treat my other areas. Well, that first 48 hours is when it continued burning the sternum. All in all, I ended up having 32 surgeries in a 30-day period, and then 2 final surgeries 6 months later. Pretty much the recovery part of it on my end was very easy. It was, I say easy, it was easy compared to my wife and my children's. I just had to deal with the physical end of it. They had to deal with the emotional, the physical. They had to deal with all of it. All I had to deal with was my pain. I'm in pain every day, but it's became normal, if that makes any sense. It's just part of my life now. It's something that I'm just used to. I don't notice it 90% of the time. I'll have a bad day every now and then, but for the most part, I'm fairly functional, happy human being. 3 months after I got out of the hospital, I was back to coaching my daughter softball. I continue to do that. I live as normal a life as most people. I wake surf, wakeboard, go out on the boat every chance I can. Just taught my 6-year-old how to wakeboard. She competed this last week, 2 weeks ago. So if I could take one thing and get it in people's head, is just be aware. Be aware of your surroundings. Power lines are about like anything that you see every single day. It becomes scenery. You don't notice it. Statistics say that you notice what's new and what's odd. But things that you see every day, power lines, that tree that's not going to be moved, is things that you don't notice anymore as you're walking by because you've seen it 1,000 times. So just make sure when you're out doing yard work, cleaning gutters, hanging lights, anything, be aware of your surroundings. Make sure that you're clear from any high voltage or any power period, whether it be high voltage or low voltage. 90% of the deaths that deal with electricity or low voltage, 120 kills more people than high voltage does, because everybody's in contact with low voltage day to day. High voltage is 90% of the time an accident.
Electricity is in our lives every day, and it does tend to fade in the background because we use it all the time, we're around it, and we think it's going to be okay. We think it's going to be a rare chance that it happens. Bottom line is it's never worth that chance. So be aware, look up, know where the power lines are. If you're carrying a ladder around, if you're working on the gutters, make sure you know where those power lines are at and stay at least 10 feet away. Another thing to look out for, really popular, are those Mylar balloons. They're not something you want to let loose after a big program somewhere where you let off a lot of balloons, because if those come in contact with electrical wires, they're made of metal, and that can cause a lot of problems. And one thing you definitely don't want to do is attach a metal ribbon from that Mylar balloon to your wrist, a child's wrist. If that accidentally comes in contact with electricity, that person becomes the path to ground. So you always want to be careful around electricity. And that's why Safe Electricity has worked so hard. We have the website, safeelectricity.org. We have the Teach, Learn, Care program. Teach what you know, learn what you need to, and care enough to share it. And we hope when you leave this program today, you will do that exactly. We hope you've learned a lot, and you'll share it with those around you so that we can all stay safe around electricity. Thank you for coming, and let's give Shawn Miller a big round of applause for sharing his story with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.